Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shamans Cave.
And I'm Renee Baribeau, and we are so excited to start off our new year with you and this community and these great topics that we've decided to start the new year with.
Yeah, there's so much coming up, in our collective as we're healing together. We're all in a healing process together. And when that happens, so many different issues come up for us, and it's a time for us to really travel within and do a lot of deep processing because the bottom line is there's only so much others can help you with. It really is about learning how to go inside yourself and listen to yourself and listen to what's happening. And so, in our past shows, the last two shows that we did, we made mention to how sometimes before we come into this lifetime, we actually create a sacred contract about a lesson that we want to learn, or an illness that we're going to go through, or a huge hardship that we're going to go through, or something that we're going to do to another. Many people get together in a partnership because they made a sacred contract in another lifetime to come back and play out a different role, put on a different costume, and play out a different role together. And this is all fine because it leads us to an amazing amount of growth, incredible amounts of growth. But we do know in spiritual traditions that some of the um, huge sacred contracts that we make, like to give you an example, when I turned 40, I went out onto the land I was living at the time by myself. I had my own 40th birthday party, and I took a rattle and I shook it, and I said to the universe, I will stay here. I don't care how bad things get. I will stay here till the end. And I swear I heard Isis, as if Renee was sitting right next to me, talking to me. And she said to me, are you sure? And I said, I am sure. And she said, then it's done. And so this is a contract I need to break. I mean, I was standing there ignorant at the age of 40 saying, I don't care. I'm staying. And that's not for my higher good. That's not for my benefit. So these are the kinds of things we're saying in the heat of moments in this life and past lives. We make these contracts that are not for our best interest.
Right? Or we have there's also those ones, those contracts that you don't exactly know how they were played out until many years later. There was I think we talked about it another time that I had this relationship where I thought this was the best for me.
Mhm.
Well, it turns out that a member of her family had a tragic accident, and we weren't speaking at the time, and I was in a whole other state, and that night, I had a dream about actually holding somebody's, brains in their head, and it felt like in that moment, and I didn't even again, I did some of these things I don't know until 10 years later. It felt like in this that was the contract, that was that I helped save his life that night because that was the most important thing in her at giving up the other relationship, like, that I was there for that moment of helping this kid, after a tragic accident, and those kind of contracts are really some things that we have to, and you might have a different opinion about that, that you just have these moments where your intersections are so perfectly aligned to help somebody else that you don't even know the magnitude of it until 20 years later.
Oh, I don't think most of us, because most of us, when we make these contracts, we're doing it from a place of ego. So the ego doesn't doesn't have the perception. It doesn't have the perception to see what it signed up for. It does.
Yeah. One time
Yeah.
a psychic told me I came into this life and I said, "Oh yeah, and I'll get that done too, and don't worry about that." And that my plate was so piled up by the time that I came into this life, I had like a list this big. I'm like, and yeah, and I'll get that done. And no wonder I'm so busy. I just made all of these agreements. So I'm for one for canceling some of these contracts that are no longer necessary because who knew back then what I was gonna really, what 60 more years was gonna look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have no idea also, as I said, what goes on in a past life. I had a dream. It was years ago, but it was like it was yesterday. In the middle of the night, I had a dream where I started screaming at the top of my lungs, literally, Ezekiel, don't sign the contract. And I mean, it was, I mean, it was an old religious figure that
Right.
dressed and everything. And I'm screaming, don't sign the contract. And at that moment, the fire alarms, 3 o'clock in the morning, all the fire alarms went off in our house.
Wow.
All of them,
Yeah, 'cause
waking
don't
me
you
up.
need to be reminded that that really happened? Um, I get that. When I was sitting in a lecture once with Hank Wesselman, it was not it was not the Sacred Circle. He was lecturing, in fact, later years later, I found out you were at that conference too over in La Quinta, and he was just lecturing. He goes, "Oh, I think I'll rattle in case no one's had an experience." Well, I had a whole entire dismemberment, but then I was put into bed for a couple of days because I had to come back together, and I had this dream, and I was in the garden, and I was told I got the job. Right now, I'm there like, "Oh, did I really want that job?" But I was so excited then that I got the job, and it was like, so I've been doing the job ever since. So that's kind of a sacred contract too. Um, and so they reveal itself to you in a lot of different ways. They're not all negative things because we like to think of like, oh my God, I can't break that contract with that person, but you can. You can change it. You can change your past. And I've gone back in my life, and we're going to do a journey in a little bit where I actually went back and changed a contract that I had with myself about waiting for my father. I kept going to the window and I'd always count cars, and he was always 40 or 50 cars late. And then finally one day I got tired of waiting. So I did this journey where I went to the little girl and said, "Do you really want to sit here and count cars?" And I actually took her into her bedroom to color and do something more productive. And then that broke that spell of me because I literally would be pacing if somebody was 5 minutes late, and I would be right ready to chew them out and, chew them out when they got to the door. It didn't do very well when I was owning a restaurant and somebody was, chronically 2 minutes late because of traffic. But I was so triggered, and that's a good sign that you know that you've come a long way, where you just are so triggered that, or not a long way, but that there's some kind of an agreement you made about this moment. And trust me, I was way happier once I broke that contract. And
Yeah.
everyone around me too.
So, Renee, you're going to lead us in an exercise on this.
We're gonna this exercise, we're not gonna do the whole exercise, but this was something I learned when I was a student at the Four Winds about it's a lower world exercise. So we're gonna journey to the lower world. And if those of you who've never done this, there's just think of the three dimensions. There's the middle world, there's the lower world, and the upper world. And so the lower world tends to be where a lot of your subconscious stuff is stored, contracts and past agreements. Or in my tradition, I'm not sure on Sandra's, but that's how I've learned it. And so we're going to journey to the lower world. And when we get there, we're going to ask again, we talked about this last week. We're going to ask permission to be there, and then we're going to go directly to the doorway of contracts, and we're going to go in, and there's a keeper of the contracts, and You might see it as the Akashic records. You can see it a lot of different ways, but you're going to ask for the book of your current contracts. And then you're going to go through there and pick one. This is the short journey. You're going to pick one that you're ready to break. Okay. And so then we're going to take it outside. We're going to put it in a big blazing fire. And then you're going to turn around and then state in your own mind's eye, and you might want to go back and do this again and again, about what you want the contract to read instead. So say you're one of those people who believes that healers shouldn't get paid. You go and just whatever that belief is, just take it with you right now and go in there, and you want to see the page that contract's on. So while I'm, while I'm getting the rattle ready, ask yourself, like, what's the big one up for me right now that I would like to let go of? Does that sound good? So let me stop.
That sounds perfect. I
Okay.
love it.
So we're gonna go to the Cave of Contracts, and we're gonna find a contract, a simple one. Don't get too crazy. A simple one that you're ready to change right now. We'll burn it up and write a new contract. So close your eyes. And imagine yourself in your favorite spot in nature. And look around, and there's a cave or an opening in the tree trunk. Whatever the way you like to go on a journey through the lower domains, the lower world. And if you're going in through a cave, you might find a body of water that can take you down. Either just go down like a waterfall or get into a canoe and go down past the bedrock, past the tree roots, all the way down into the center of the earth. And you'll land in a pool of water. And then look around and you'll see some light. And head towards that light and ask the guardian, your guardian of the lower world, may I enter into this territory? And once you have permission, ask your guardian to take you to the Cave of Contracts. Might be behind a door. And as you go into the Cave of Contracts, just kind of review your life quickly and ask, what contract am I ready to break right now? What contract am I ready to rewrite, to change? And as you go up to the counter or to the keeper of the contract, ask for the book where this contract lives. And then read the contract the way you wrote it back then. And just, is there any part of this contract that you want to keep? So take that page from the book and go outside into the center, and there's a big community fire with lots of other people who are also ready to release their contracts. And when it's your turn, go to the center of the fire, give that contract one final kiss, one final wind whistle, put it into the fire, and then turn your back. Now, go find a place to sit down or a place to stand and write down how you want that contract to read now. It may be an entirely new contract you're writing, or you may be rewording. Read it out loud to yourself. And if it feels good, if it feels affirming, you can take that contract page with you. Now head back towards that cave, that pool of water. Thank the guardian for helping you. And in today's journey, we're not bringing anything back with us except for this newly revised wording for this contract. And then you're going to come back up that chamber the same way you went down. You're going to come out from the cave, out from the tree root, into a beautiful day or the field or wherever your favorite place is in nature. And then feel the gentle breeze of the wind, reaffirming you as you come back. And then as you're ready, back into your body, back into this room, back into this beautiful day. And take a deep breath and see if you feel a little bit lighter, a little bit easier. And what I would recommend is going out in nature or something and making a new little altar for your new contract, or if you have an altar, lighting a candle for your new contract, just something so that you know that you just got rid of one and made a new agreement.
Mm, that was amazing. And yeah, I ended up being shown a little bit of something different. The thing I love about working with the spirits is sometimes they'll just point you in the right direction. I feel that I personally feel that this exercise took us into such sacred space, and eternally grateful to Renee for leading us on this exercise. And I really don't want to add any words because I think you should really be in your space right now. I
Mm.
just want to say thank you for being part of the Shaman's Cave. Thank you for sharing it with others. Thank you for subscribing. And write a beautiful contract because it'll affect all of us in this lifetime.
Amen to that. We'll see you next week.